Hey, what's up guys? Today I wanted to talk about the new artifact sets coming in patch 3.3 along with the Wanderer and whether or not I believe they're worth spending your resin, covering how good each of the sets are, which characters can use them, and also some mistakes that I think people are going to be making regarding the value of the set and whether or not they're worth going for depending on the characters you play and want to build. In fact, I'm going to be taking a closer look at these new artifact sets that I'll put on screen right now that were revealed during the preview stream for patch 3.3 and give you guys my thoughts on them. Also, another main part of this video is going to be actually discussing if they are a worthwhile upgrade, as I believe many people might jump the gun on it and just start farming for it instantly because it's new without really considering what they already have and whether or not it's actually worth, which can make for a lot of wasted resin. So because of that, let's actually have a closer look. Regarding the first of the two sets, the Desert Pavilion, this set is clearly designed for anemo characters and more specifically scaramouche. In fact, this set will give you 15% anemo damage on the 2-piece and then a more versatile 4-piece set which will increase your normal attack speed by 10% and then also increase the damage of your normal, charged, and plunge attacks by 40% for 15 seconds after you hit an opponent with a charge attack. Because of that, whichever character uses this set has to do a charge attack ideally as soon as possible in order to buff their damage to every form of attack. Because of that, it can be good for characters that aren't just charge attackers. For example, it can buff your xiao's plunge damage or the normal attack damage of some other normal attacking characters, but it does require you to do a charge attack. To go into a bit more detail on this set before moving on to the next one, let's actually address which characters can use this. Now, while I do think there are some niche uses on non-anemo characters, I think it's obviously a set designed for anemo characters. Because of that, it's going to pretty clearly be a set made for Scaramouche, so it will be his best set and one that you should farm for him, unless you have really good substats on alternative sets like potentially Reminiscence, 2 Verdescent, 2 Glad, or other sets that I'll cover in my guide video dedicated specifically for him once we actually know more about his kit, as it is still too early to tell. With that said, for the existing characters that are anemo, it can be ran on the following. First of all, Xiao, it can be a good set on, but not the most resin efficient. What I mean by that is it is going to be a few percents better than 2 Verdescent with 2 Glad or mix and matching 2-pieces like is currently recommended to do, so it will be slightly better than that, but not that much more. This is because it gives you a ton of plunge damage, but since Xiao already gains so much damage percent on his burst, and also with some potential support characters that he can be ran with, extra damage percent may not be as good as it seems, but also does get more valuable if you have a lot of external sources of attack like Bennett, Noblesse Oblige, Thrilling Tales, or others. TLDR though, to not get into too many details, it's generally not as good as the Vermilion set, the 4-piece, which will give your Xiao more attack and is a set dedicated for him. With that said, and this is important, the Vermilion set is very resin inefficient. Vermilion and Echoes are really only good to farm if you need both for, let's say, Xiao and Ayato and don't have alternatives, because generally speaking for your account, it's not recommended to go into that domain. And so the new set, while it isn't quite as good, unless you have just a ton of attack percent buffers, isn't too far behind and is a good alternative to where it could be good for your Xiao if you want to go to this domain anyways. A slight upgrade over mix and matching 2-pieces isn't something you should go out of your way to farm for, but if you already need to go into that domain for other characters that we'll talk about in this video or for the other artifact set, then having a new place to get passively better artifacts for your Xiao can be desirable as well. With that said, for the other anemo characters, it is more niche. Like, a lot of people have been hyping it up for Hazo, and I've been getting a lot of questions regarding if it will be good on this character, and I've seen people say that will be his new best in slot, whereas in reality, yes, it can technically be his best personal DPS set, so if that's all you care about, then feel free to go farm it. But in practice, Verdescent Venerer is typically going to give you more team damage. The reason for this is because the teams where you actually want to run Hazo are teams where you want an on-field driver who can deal good normal and charge attack damage, but also swirl, right? Also buff your team through the Verdescent Venerer artifact set, which is, in my opinion, the best support artifact set in the game, and will give your team a ton of damage. For example, in a Taser team, you're running powerful Electro and powerful Hydro characters, and being able to swirl both Hydro and Electro with your anemo quote-unquote DPS is going to give you a massive increase in team damage, even more than the new set would give your Hazo, even if his personal damage would be a bit higher with the new artifact set. Because of that, it's a good viable option for him, but meta-wise, you would still prefer the Verdescent Venerer, so I'm not too big of a fan of it. And the same can be said with someone like Jean, who as a support would always want to run Verdescent Venerer, as that is her main role. Yes, if you want to run her as a main DPS for fun, you can use the new set, but generally speaking, Verdescent Venerer on anemo characters is just way too strong. Something I did want to mention about this set though is that while yes, the 2-piece does give you anemo damage bonus, since the 4-piece gives you a ton of normal charge and plunge attack damage, it can be a viable 4-piece on even non-anemo characters. While it isn't going to be their best in slot, as there are other sets that can give you more total stats like Reminiscence or specific ones for the character, like for example Heart of Depth on Child or mix and matching 2-pieces, the 4-piece set effect, buffing your normal and charge attacks, can be a viable option on these characters, albeit not the best overall and not my personal favorite. It's just worth mentioning when they're viable because obviously Genshin's a gacha game, so you might just get lucky in one domain, get really good substats, and so acknowledging that it is viable on many characters is important. Do keep in mind though, you need to do a charge attack for it to work. I don't know why my child's on Favonius, ignore that. But you do need to do a charge attack for the set effect to work. So when you're using someone like Xiao, this set will get sort of buffed in single target where charge attacking is good. Although I don't think that's as big of a problem as people make it out to be, since single target is when Xiao is weaker and in AoE against large enemies, he will be good anyways. With that said, other characters that can use this set are technically Child, although there's better ones, technically Yoimiya for normal attack damage and attack speed, although obviously Reminiscence would be more favorable, and there are a few normal attackers that you can use this on, but typically there are better sets, so I would mainly just recommend farming this when you need it for an Anemo character like mainly Scaramouche, but also potentially Xiao, if you don't already have a 2-piece set farmed for him, or Vermilion, which is a bit better. Now, while I spent a lot of time talking about this first artifact set, my favorite one, and probably the main reason I'm making this video, is going to be the second one, the Flower of Paradise Lost. This artifact set is going to be the new one designed specifically for buffing bloom damage and also the sub-reactions of bloom, being Hyper Bloom and Burgeon, buffing the damage of that reaction specifically, making it a good set on the characters that will be used in either a bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgeon team as the main ones proccing that reaction. In fact, what this set does is give you 80 elemental mastery on the 2-piece, which is the same as Gilded Dreams or Wanderers and is good. This means that the set can be versatile as just a 2-piece on so many different characters that might just want elemental mastery, but when paired with this 4-piece, it will also significantly increase the reaction damage of bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon. In fact, the reaction damage is increased by 40%, and then when the character equipping this set triggers one of these reactions, they'll get another 25% of this 40, so another 10% damage increase, stacking up to 4 times and lasting 10 seconds per stack. This effect can also be triggered even from off field, which is a really big deal. Because of that, you can gain a ton of damage percent to your bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgeon reaction damage, while also gaining 80 elemental mastery. Now, when you compare this set to, for example, the Gilded Dreams, while the 2 pieces are the same, the 4-piece of Gilded Dreams will give you a ton of elemental mastery just straight up. It'll give you 50 elemental mastery per character of a different type than the one using the set, so generally that'll be 150 or 100 plus 14% attack if you're running 2 characters of the same element and one of them is running Gilded. Because of that, you're choosing between a more generalistic set, Gilded Dreams, which gives you so much elemental mastery when you are proccing reactions, which makes it very universally good for reaction-based characters, which is going to be the main distinction, as you can just use it on like Dendro reaction carries, whereas the new set, yes, you can still use it on all of the bloom reactions, but it obviously won't be as good in any other situation. Because of that, the artifact set is pretty niche, but bloom, Hyper Bloom, and Burgeon is 3 different team comps where it can be used, which gives it enough use cases to where it can be a good addition to your account if you do plan on using those reactions. Now, with that said, the questions you guys are obviously asking is, well, is it better than Gilded, and if so, by how much, and also which characters can use it? Now, before we get into that, I want to start by quickly saying that Gilded is generally going to be still really good for bloom reactions, but also good in other teams like Aggravate, as I just mentioned, which makes it more versatile. And so if you already have good Gilded, refarming just for a bloom, Burgeon, or Hyper Bloom carry will not be worth it. The reason for that is because the damage increase is typically, and this is still early math since the set isn't really out yet, and so if any of this changes, it will be in a pinned comment, but it's generally about a 5 to 10% and closer to 5% DPS increase going from Gilded Dreams to the new set. This does depend though on a few things, notably how much elemental mastery you already have and how many reactions you're proccing and stuff like that, but generally speaking, the new set is about a 5% or a bit more DPS increase for your bloom, Burgeon, or Hyper Bloom carry. Because of that, it is not insignificant. It's a pretty good increase, but it's not enough to where I would recommend going and farming it just for one character if you don't need the other set and if you already have a good Gilded Dreams. The reason I'm mentioning Gilded Dreams so much is because Gilded Dreams is paired with the Deepwood Memories artifact set, which is an artifact set that you really just need in your Dendro teams, at least on one character, typically on the Dendro slot that you're running, like for me it's Nahida, as it decreases the Dendro resistance of opponents, which can buff your Dendro reaction damage like Bloom. So it is super important to have a Deepwood Memory set on someone in your team to buff your reaction damage. Because of Deepwood and Gilded going together, being in the same domain, it's such a valuable one that I would still recommend farming this one for Dendro teams primarily instead of going for the new set. With that said, if you want to farm for Scaramouche and or Xiao, and you also want to build a Bloom, Burgeon, or Hyper Bloom team, or for example already have Deepwood but your Gilded Dream set isn't that good or is already being used, then going for the new set that is a slight DPS increase is going to actually be worth it and something that I would recommend. And so because of that, let's actually talk about which characters can use the new set. As I said, it's going to be characters that carry in either Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgeon, the characters that are proccing those reactions. So for example, let's say you're playing Hyper Bloom, it's going to be the Electro carry, the one popping your cores on the ground and proccing that Electro reaction. For Hyper Bloom, it's typically going to be Kuki. You could also use this on EM Raiden or technically Dory, but there are other Electro Hyper Bloomers like technically an on-field Yai, but for her damage is really split to where buffing her own personal damage is also important, so Gilded Dreams can help with that as well. But generally speaking, it's a set made for someone like Kuki or EM Raiden for Hyper Bloom. For Burgeon, someone like Toma can use this set quite efficiently, as he's going to be the generic go-to Burgeon carry, proccing all the cores on the ground with his burst. For Bloom teams, these are typically Nilou teams, the main ones that are proccing Bloom but not Hyper Bloom or Burgeon, this can be ran on the Hydro character. Typically, that's going to be proccing Bloom. So for example, you're running triple Hydro with Nahida on field. You can run it on your Kokomi, who will be on full Elemental Mastery, proccing the Bloom reactions, or on Barbara, who can do the same, or off-field Ayato, or a bunch of different Hydro characters that can proc Bloom, but mainly Barbara or Kokomi are the go-to ones. Especially in teams where you might be running double Dendro, or not necessarily Nahida, or if your Nilou is getting a pretty high amount of blooms herself, depending on your rotation, you can also run this set on her, as she does get some blooms, despite not being the main one proccing it. With that said, I wouldn't typically put it on someone like Nahida, as she would run Deepwood, or even sometimes Gilded, but typically Deepwood to buff your Dendro reaction damage, and so you would use it on your Hydro in Bloom teams, your Electro in Hyper Bloom teams, or your Pyro in Burgeon teams. As I said, it is a slight DPS increase to Gilded Dreams, but it is less versatile, and it isn't big enough to where if you already farmed the last set, I wouldn't recommend going for it. Lastly, I wanted to include probably the most important section of this video, which is regarding the mistake to avoid and just covering whether or not you should actually farm this set. I believe a lot of people might see the set and instantly think that they need it for their scaramouche or their Bloom, Burgeon, Hyper Bloom team, and then immediately go farm it. I think this is dangerous because the DPS increase from what we know right now and the math that's been done right now pre-release, it does seem like it's a pretty marginal damage increase to your current characters that would use this set. Now, the main exception here is either one, you're going to need both of the new sets as upgrades to whatever you already have, and you maybe don't already have a set farmed for Scaramouche or your Bloom carry, in which case going for the new domain could be worth it. Another situation is if you just choose to main the Wanderer and you want to get the set for him, or if you have not farmed for your Bloom, Hyper Bloom, or Burgeon carry, already have a Deepwood set from this domain, so you don't need to keep farming it, and in which case that new set would be better than Gilded Dreams, to where it could be smart to farm it. So there is merit to the new domain, but outside of those situations, the DPS increase from both sets does seem marginal to the sets that we already have, typically being around 5%, but again, do wait until like Wanderer comes out and we know actually more, but it does for now seem to be around a 5% damage increase in general from both Gilded to Bloom, and for the other set as like a slight DPS increase for someone like Xiao and, you know, Wanderer, as it is his signature set, to where I think this set is not going to be a must farm at all. I really don't think it's as vital to your account as something like Emblem or, you know, even the Deepwood set for Dendro team specifically. So do be careful with your Resin. I think you can definitely go farm it, especially if you're going to main Wanderer / Scaramouche, and especially if you could also use the Bloom set in Bloom based teams. With that said though, I will update the pinned comment if there's any new information, especially once Wanderer comes out, or if there's new calcs that have been done regarding certain Bloom teams and stuff. So do keep an eye out for that, but that is my opinion right now. It's a decent domain, not the best for most people, and you can skip it and run alternative sets even on your Wanderer or on your Dendro reaction teams, with Gilded Dreams being very universal, as I mentioned many times so far, but it can obviously be worth your time if you do meet the conditions that I mentioned previously. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the new sets. I hope you enjoyed this video, a bit more of a free-form video. I hope it wasn't too long. Should have been out a while ago because the sets were announced a while ago, but I've been busy. But nonetheless, I do hope you enjoyed. With that said, do keep in mind that I stream most sets on Twitch, link in the description if you're interested, and also stay tuned for a bunch of new guides, notably a Wanderer guide once he does come out, and also some TCG videos if you are interested in those. I may actually make some, so do leave a comment if that is something you want to see. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.